Tonight, racist, sexist and inappropriate messages. The head of the Met's Black Police Association is sacked. Inspector Charles Ahikioya was found to have committed gross misconduct after a panel scrutinised thousands of WhatsApp messages. He says they were fabricated.
I categorically deny the allegations made against me, and I am dismayed by the decision to dismiss me after 3 decades of dedicated policing service.
Also ahead, more train strike misery. Walkouts start this Sunday and they'll continue all the way to May. We'll have the details. Plus,
it's awful to hear these stories, but I think that's why, like I'm keep saying, these places are just so important. You can't underestimate the impact places like this have, to keep people safe.
we speak exclusively to Declan Rice about how Arsenal is helping to tackle youth violence in the capital. And
hardly an electric car, more like an electric bath chair. The C5 is
an invention before its time, 40 years since its launch at Alexandra Palace. How the Sinclair C5 is more of a hit than a flop with fans is now more.
I categorically deny the allegations made against me, and I am dismayed by the decision to
these stories, but I think that's why, like I'm keep saying, these places are just so important. You can't underestimate the impact places like this have, to keep people safe.
hardly an electric car, more like an electric bath chair. The C5 is
now the latest ITV news in London with Lucrezia Millerini.
Tonight, racist, sexist and inappropriate messages. The head of the Met's Black Police Association is sacked. Inspector Charles Ahikioya was found to have committed gross misconduct after a panel scrutinised thousands of WhatsApp messages. He says they were fabricated.
I categorically deny the allegations made against me, and I am dismayed by the decision to dismiss me after 3 decades of dedicated policing service.
Also ahead, more train strike misery. Walkouts start this Sunday. They'll continue all the way to May. We have the details. Plus,
it's awful to hear these stories, but I think that's why, like I'm keep saying, these places are just so important. You can't underestimate the impact places like this have, to keep people safe.
we speak exclusively to Declan Rice about how Arsenal is helping to tackle youth violence in the capital. And
hardly an electric car, more like an electric bath chair. The C5.
An invention before its time, 40 years since its launch at Alexandra Palace. How the Sinclair C5 is now more of a hit than a flop with fans. Good evening. The head of the Metropolitan Police's Black Police Association has been dismissed after a panel found he committed gross misconduct for sending inappropriate and offensive text messages. The tribunal heard that Inspector Charles Ahikioya sent and received multiple messages described as racist, misogynistic and derogatory, so serious that they breached police conduct standards. Well, Inspector Ahikioya has denied the allegations against him, maintaining the claims were fabricated or falsely attributed to him because of his race or position as chair of the MBPA. Cafe Patter reports from the tribunal.
Seen here in a beige coat, Charles Ahikioya is the chair of the Met's Black Police Association, the man tasked with rooting out discrimination, now found to have engaged in that very behaviour. A misconduct panel found that for a number of years, Ahikioya sent hundreds of racist and derogatory WhatsApp messages far too obscene to show on screen. He claims that they were planted by his own organisation and denies ever sending them.
Now, we just heard a very damning assessment from the panel. Not only did they find that Inspector Ahikioya sent racist, sexist and derogatory messages, but that his defence that they were fabricated were fanciful and far-fetched. No surprise then that they concluded his behaviour did in fact amount to gross misconduct.
Despite this ruling, there was still support from the head of the National Black Police Association, and he didn't confirm whether Ahikioya's messages were racist.
And what do you make of the messages?
We find them deeply disturbing. They're not ones that we would condone in any way, shape or form, so no, we don't believe that they are appropriate in any way.
Were they racist?
The message that I seen were definitely fell below the standards which any officer in the police service should have.
Tonight, Ahikioya left his hearing stripped of his rank and his job. All this former officer has left is his belief that he is innocent.
Right. I categorically deny the allegations made against me, and I am dismayed by the decision to dismiss me after 3 decades of dedicated policing service. Thank you very much. No questions. I need to go.
Just one quick question. If you didn't send those messages, who did?
Ask the MPS, because they found nothing on any of my device or my phone.
However, investigators were able to find electronic traces of the messages and bring a case against him. As for Ahikioya, he's vowed to appeal this decision. Kath Apata, ITV News.
Well, next, a search for a British hiker who went missing in Italy has been called off for the day, with rescuers battling challenging conditions in the Dolomites. Friends Aziz Ziriat and Samuel Harris, who are both from South London, have been missing since New Year's Day. Samuel's body was recovered on Wednesday. Helen Keenan joins us now. Helen, what do we know about the search so far?
Well, we know that the search for the missing hiker resumed early this morning. Now, that was after fog reduced visibility yesterday, combining that with the risk of avalanches from the snow. It meant the search had to be paused for 24 hours. Now, helicopters, we know, were up in the sky earlier today, which we are told by Italian rescue teams are essential in their search efforts. Now, they are looking for South Londoner Aziz Ziriat. He went on a hiking trip to the Italian Dolomites with his friend Sam Harris. Now, on Wednesday this week, rescue crews found what is believed to be the body of Sam. Now, the pair had failed to board their return flight home over a week ago, and the alarm was raised when there'd been no contact from either of them after New Year's Day, and the rescue teams were alerted by friends and family on the 6th of January. Now, friends have told us that the two men were experienced hikers who had planned to hike between mountain huts. We know those mountain huts were searched, and they, of course, didn't find them there. Now, family and friends of Aziz Ziriat, we understand, remain in Italy. They're awaiting any further news. And rescue teams, we understand, will meet again tomorrow, and they will discuss how and when the search will resume.
All right, Helen, thank you for the update. The late TV presenter Caroline Flack's mother is to explore her daughter's story in a new documentary. The film will follow Christine Flack as she tries to understand events in the final months of her daughter's life, while also celebrating her career. The TV presenter died in 2020 after taking her own life. The documentary will be released later this year on Disney+. Police say they're concerned about a surge in youth violence after the fatal stabbing of a 14-year-old boy on a bus earlier this week in Woolwich. Schoolboy and aspiring rapper Kellyanne Bokassa was killed on Tuesday afternoon. The Met have now imposed a 24-hour stop and search powers and a ban on face coverings across Woolwich and nearby areas. Well, sadly, knife crime is nothing new in the capital, but the fight against it continues. Arsenal's No More Red campaign is a sports initiative addressing youth violence. Well, this year, players including England and Arsenal star Declan Rice are backing the campaign and hoping to inspire change. Speaking exclusively to Antoine Allen, Declan told ITV News London about the teenagers benefiting from the programme, the importance of role models both on and off the pitch.
It's awful to hear these stories, but I feel that's why, like I keep saying, these places are just so important. You can't underestimate the impact places like this have, to keep people safe, to get people off the street.
As the heartbreak of young people losing their lives to knife crime continues, the need for leaders and role models increases.
Knife crime right now is something that's just huge and all across London.
The impact it has on people.
Declan Rice and his Arsenal teammates want to show leadership on and off the pitch by lending their voices to the fight against serious youth violence.
You entered football as a boy, you're now a man, you're also a father. When you hear stories about youth violence and young people losing their lives, just how do you feel as a father?
Terrible. I think until you become a dad, I think you see stories all the time about stuff. But when you actually become a dad and you feel it and you have your own son or your own daughter, that protection kind of goes up in a way.
In the fourth year of Arsenal and Adidas's No More Red campaign, Rice and Arsenal stars Miles Lewis-Skelly and Lionesses Alicia Russo went to meet the people in North London receiving support and mentorship. Rice watched the 16-year-old who received funded coaching lessons. The Anti-Youth Violence Initiative aims to nurture role models in Arsenal's community.
And there's a lot of people who say, stick to football, Arsenal should stick to football, but why do you think football can be a powerful tool to change society and make things better?
I think because we've got massive voices. We're fortunate enough and lucky enough that we're loved all around the world from Arsenal fans, football fans in general, and I think when we speak, it's really heard. I think the more we can keep speaking and using our voice and not worrying about what people are going to think, the more powerful that is.
The No More Red campaign is committed to supporting and building safe places to play, connecting with youth charities and supporting role models. On the pitch, the Arsenal players will wear the iconic kit in the third round of the FA Cup at home against Manchester United.
Just what will it make you feel if you were able to bring another cup to the Emirates?
Wow. I think it would be one of the best things ever. The Arsenal Man United historically is a fixture that's watched by millions around the world. The FA Cup's probably the most historic cup you can play in, so to be wearing this shirt with millions watching, obviously thousands in attendance, I think it's going to be a really powerful setting and day. So I'm really looking forward to it, and hopefully we get a win in this beautiful kit again.
On Sunday, Declan and the Arsenal players will once again inspire football fans to think about knife crime.
We can't fail the young people.
And the role models and leaders working to save lives. Antoine Allen, ITV News.
Now, passengers on busy rail routes are being warned of disruption to services this weekend because of a strike by train managers. Members of the Rail, Maritime and Transport Union at Avanti West Coast will begin a series of Sunday walkouts in a dispute over rest day working. Our senior correspondent Ronke Phillips is at Euston this evening. Ronke, tell us more about this latest set of strikes.
Well, Lucrezia, these strikes are going to cause extensive disruption for anyone using Avanti services to try and get out of London. As you say, rail managers are going to walk out every Sunday between now and May the 25th. That's 19 Sundays in total. And added to that, there's planned engineering work on most of those Sundays. So commuting's not going to be easy, and it's certainly not going to be fun. Now, there still will be trains running, but it will be a drastically reduced service. And Avanti is encouraging people to travel either on the Saturday or the Monday. What they want people to do is avoid those Sundays altogether if they can. The timetables, well, they're still working on those, but they say they will run one train an hour between London and Euston and Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool and Preston. And there'll be a limited service between Glasgow and Carlisle. And the hours the trains will run will also be reduced, with the first train of the day running after 8 a.m. and the last train of the day running before 5 p.m. Now, Avanti has issued a statement and they say they're disappointed by the RMT calling a strike for an extended period when our commuters may be working, visiting family and friends or enjoying days out. And the RMT, for their part, say they are willing to negotiate, but they want a fair deal for their workers.
All right, Lonke at Euston, thank you. Still to come. A globetrotter from Lambeth reaches a remarkable milestone on his quest to visit every country in the world. And a look ahead to this weekend's FA Cup matches, with Tottenham and Chelsea gearing up for the third round of the tournament. But first, he was a genius from Richmond who revolutionised technology, popularised home computers and even invented the pocket calculator. Now, 40 years after its launch, one of Sir Clive Sinclair's most controversial creations, a Sinclair C5, is being celebrated. Today, enthusiasts of the UK's first electric vehicle are keeping its legacy alive, with the anniversary being marked at Alexandra Palace. Before we meet one of those superfans, let's take a look at the OG EV in action.
This is brilliant. I like it. It was actually the product of some incredibly forward thinking by its genius inventor, Sir Clive Sinclair. He was so proud of his baby that he even named it after himself. That C stands for Clive. Yes, it's the Clive 5.
But there are disadvantages. It's open to car fumes and to the weather. When turning, you have to take one hand off the handlebars where the brakes are, and that could be dangerous.
So I suppose the acid test is, would I take this vehicle on a motorway or through a standard city rush hour? I think the answer has to be I wouldn't.
There were plenty of advantages. It was under 400 quid, and 5 miles on this thing would only relieve you of 1 penny in running costs. I told you it was cool.
Wow, wow. Well, one of those enthusiasts that we talked about earlier, Rob Jeffrey, joins me now. Goodness me, what a blast from the past, seeing all that old footage.
It is. Hello.
For some like you, hello, because you are an original superfan, aren't you? Because you've actually got a Sinclair C5.
I have.
And there's a story behind how you got it.
There is. A friend bought one.
Yeah.
But he's souped it up to make it go super fast, far more than it was originally designed. I got interested, but it also for my daughter, who's got disabilities.
Yeah, and she uses it now.
She uses it a lot, yeah.
Yeah, well, there we go. Oh, we can see you there, all using it there. So what is it actually like to drive? Because, you know, famously, they flopped, didn't they?
They're great fun. They're really good fun to drive. The trouble is Clive Sinclair didn't market it properly. He promised everybody it was going to be a car, and actually what came out was a tricycle.
Yeah.
So
it didn't quite work at the time, but now they're having this kind of, well, not a resurgence, because we don't see many of them. You're one of the few people actually to own one. But you were at this relaunch today at Alexandra Palace, which is where they were launched all those years ago, 40 years ago. What was it like to see all them?
Apart from being freezing cold, it was great. It was really interesting to catch up. In fact, the weather conditions were exactly the same as they were 40 years ago. But yeah, it's really interesting to see it's the people responsible for making the car, designing the car. Yeah, it's nice. It's good to see the old gang come together.
Yeah, I think we've got some pictures from earlier on this morning, probably just to show people. But you know, technically, these they're EVs, a bit ahead of their time, but technically they were tricycles.
They're really electric bikes, and they fell into the new rule that Margaret Thatcher brought out back in 1984, I think, which followed EU law basically suggesting that it's a bicycle, basically. It can only do 15 miles an hour.
Yeah. And, you know, it's one of those things we talk about Sir Clive Sinclair. He was a Londoner from Richmond, as we said. And he was an inventor. He was behind many things, wasn't he? But, you know, this is what he'll be remembered for, which is
unfortunately,
a bit of a shame, isn't it, for his legacy? He passed in 2021.
His legacy really is he introduced computers to kids in this country, which made a massive difference, pushed us forward in technology and things like that. But unfortunately, everybody remembers him for his C5.
Yeah. And listen, if you own one now,
Yes.
If you wanted to part with it, how much would you get for it now?
Oh, up to £2,500. A reasonable one you'd get for about £1,000, but you'd need to do a lot of work on it.
All right.
So,
maybe hold on to it a little bit longer, Rob.
Oh yeah, I think so. It's not like a vintage car, not yet anyway.
Yeah. All right. Listen, it's been lovely chatting with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next time you bring in the Sinclair C5.
Thank you.
All right, Rob. Thanks very much.
Cheers, then.
All right, now an influencer from Lambeth says he has achieved a remarkable milestone on his journey to visit 195 countries around the world, becoming the first outsider to connect with some of Papua New Guinea's most remote tribes. His mission, which he describes as a lifelong dream, is not just about getting views, but forging meaningful connections with diverse cultures and communities. Sharing his travels on social media, he says meeting the tribes was a humbling experience, as Carolyn Sim reports.
When Daniel Pinto says he's going travelling...
Good morning from Tripoli.
He really means it.
Not the best biryani I've ever had.
In the past few years, he's visited 138 of the world's 195 countries and immersed himself in their cultures.
I just think the world is a beautiful place and there's so much to see, and if you don't go out and see it, you're missing out.
Welcome to the really tiny island of Tumleo.
Daniel has just got back from the Pacific island of Papua New Guinea, where in one extremely remote village, he claims to have been the first tourist people there had ever seen.
I didn't go there with that idea. I had no idea no one had ever been there. Just when we got there, me and my friend, they told us, look, we've never had a foreigner. I think they were super happy to have me there. If they weren't, you would know, and I wouldn't stay as long. I would have left because I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable.
Food is a big part of Daniel's adventures. He's tried all sorts.
I've had live worms, I've had snake, I've drank snake's blood, I've had giant rat, I've had pag in the Philippines, which is essentially meat from the trash that they've repurposed. I've had pregnant frog recently in Thailand. That was a bit of a fun one. Yeah, I've pretty much everything I've tried at least once.
Daniel admits going off the beaten track can be dangerous. He took a taxi in South Sudan, which a few months earlier had been shot at.
Anyone died? They killed 3 people on the way. In your car? In my car.
And he was injured in a car crash there.
Do you feel a responsibility when you're putting these videos out to make sure you kind of portray the country in the right way?
I feel like I should show the country for what it is. There's a lot of influencers online that will just make everything look amazing for views or make everything seem negative for views. I just want to show my experience, whether that's good or bad.
Daniel might pop back to Lambeth sometime this year, but first he's off to Colombia, Venezuela and the Amazon rainforest in Brazil, hoping to see places that most of us never will. Carolyn Sim, ITV News.
All right, let's find out what's on the evening news next with Charlene.
At least 10 people are dead in California as wildfires rage on, leaving a trail of devastation as thousands of homes are destroyed. With many still missing, authorities say the death toll is likely to rise. Music to the ears of fans as the government announces plans to tackle ticket touts and dynamic pricing. And they certainly look like they're enjoying themselves. But can fifth-tier Tamworth keep their remarkable FA Cup run going against Tottenham on Sunday? Join us for those stories and more from 6:30.
All right, sport now. Look ahead to the third round of the FA Cup.
Zero Accounting Software sponsors ITV Regional Sports Report.
It is one of the most exciting weekends in the English football calendar when lower league minnows get the chance to take on some of the biggest clubs in the world. This Sunday, it's Tottenham against Tamworth in a true David and Goliath encounter. There are almost 100 league places between the sides and the gap in player wages is even bigger. But the result is never a foregone conclusion, as Lewis Rhys-Jones reports.
Following a euphoric win against Premier League table toppers Liverpool earlier this week, Tottenham Hotspur are getting ready for the third round of the FA Cup. The game will be a contrast to their last win, facing non-league club Tamworth on Sunday. Spurs will be travelling here to the Lamb Ground for a 12:30 kick-off. And while Tamworth will be keen to give it all they've got, Tottenham manager Ange Postecoglou says he won't be forgetting the importance of every game, no matter the opponent.
I've got no doubt at the attitude of the players that we're not, I think all along they've always had a great understanding of every game's importance, and we certainly will, are going to Sunday's game with the same sort of mindset of making sure that we, do things we can control, play our football, put a real big emphasis on the things that we do really well.
Meanwhile, Chelsea will be hosting League Two side Morecambe tomorrow, and the pressure will be on for them to end their 4-game winless run when they take to the pitch. So how are the fans feeling?
Absolutely buzzing. It is my son Riley. It's his first game at the Bridge tomorrow. So I think we've got it in the bag tomorrow.
I'm sure Enzo Maresca is going to make the right team selection. But yeah, it's just a matter of what type of Chelsea will turn up tomorrow. I hope that we don't be complacent.
We're going to win. With Cole Palmer in there, we're going to win. And even if we are going to have our second team, trust me, we're going to win.
With a weekend of sport ahead and everything left to play for, the Blues and Morecambe will be playing on Saturday afternoon, and fans can catch Spurs here on ITV on Sunday. Lewis Rhys-Jones, ITV News.
And staying with the FA Cup, all eyes will be on Graham Potter tonight as he leads the Hammers for the first time in their match against Aston Villa. The former Chelsea boss was only confirmed as West Ham's new manager yesterday morning and took training in the afternoon. He steps in on a 2.5-year contract following a difficult run of games for the club. Villa's Premier League fixture against Stoke City was cancelled this afternoon because of adverse weather conditions. Well, temperatures not looking much warmer here either. It's going to get very, very chilly over the weekend. Let's see what the full forecast has in store with James.
An icy start to the day will give way to a series of oohs and ahs. TUI sponsors ITV London weekend weather.
Hello there, good evening. A pretty chilly end to the week. At least it wasn't too cloudy. Any cloud was fairly high, so it was nice and bright. The cloud, with courtesy of this front here, was throwing that cloud ahead of it. But that's all going to retreat, and we'll start to see a high pressure really in force across the weekend. As it moves position, it'll just allow some slightly less cold air in from the southwest, and by Tuesday we might be back into double figures. Not the case tonight. We've got temperatures well below freezing, clearing skies, not much of a breeze. You can't see any wind arrows here. That's going to allow some freezing mist and fog to develop. I don't think it's going to be a particularly bad issue, but certainly worth a note. Temperatures in town, much like last night, around -2 Celsius. Outlying areas a bit colder than that. Something like Gatwick, Charlwood could get down to around -4, -5. So an icy start for some tomorrow, certainly a frosty one. Some sunshine, not very strong at the moment, so it might take a little while for any mist, if it develops, to start to lift, but it will do. And into the afternoon, once again, some nice sunshine. Cold though, 2 or 3 Celsius at best, but at least it's not particularly breezy. So if you do go out, wrap up warm, but at least there's some sunshine to enjoy. Another chilly start to the day on Sunday, but we're just starting to see a more definite flow of air from the south and east there. So up to 5 Celsius on Sunday, 7 on Monday, bit of cloud potentially around. Breeze starts to pick up, and it means that come Tuesday we may well be back into double figures and haven't been there for quite a few days. Have a great weekend.
TUI sponsors ITV London weekend weather.
And finally, Spandau Ballet's Gary Kemp has released a new song with a thoroughly modern twist.
And I know where I'm going. Oh, my case is getting lighter.
This brand new music video that sees a man journey across land and sea in a hyper-real animation was completely generated using AI. The singer has described his new track, titled I Know Where I'm Going, as his most personal to date. And that's it from us for now. The evening news is next with Charlene, but from all of us on the London team, bye-bye. Have a great weekend.